All right, so you've recorded a bunch of vocals, but then you go to mix them and you find they just don't sound quite right. Well, it might be because you've missed a step, which is actually the vocal editing phase, which can be kind of tedious and boring, just being honest. But in this video, I'm going to share with you how you can edit vocals quickly and easily so it's not as tiring and annoying. Hi, I'm Reagan Ram with Orpheus Audio Academy, and I'm a little sick, so if I sound weird in this video, that is why. And so here we're looking at how to edit your vocals very simply and easily, and this is part 7 in my Saddest Studio Ever series, where I'm walking through step-by-step how to go about writing, producing, mixing, and releasing a song, even if you know nothing about music theory or how to play an instrument and have a really, sad studio with only budget equipment and no acoustic treatment. So that's what this entire series is. We're now on part 7. If you want to check out the full series, just go to orpheusaudioacademy.com/start, and you can sign up to get all these videos. It's kind of like a free course to help you get started with music production. All right, so now here we are with editing vocals, and the first step is called comping, where you go through all your vocals and you pick the best parts that you want to use. So for example, I've got this vocal section here, so we'll go one kind of phrase at a time. So we got this. Plastic smile, we'll bound home. Not great. Also, I recorded these when I was 6, so they sound pretty awful. Plastic smile, we'll bound home. That's a little better. Plastic smile, we'll bound home. That's probably the best. So I'm going to highlight these and mute them. Then we kind of got this phrase. But in my bones, but in my bones, but in my bones, but in my bones, but in my bones. And for now on this one, I think this one might be the best. So this is where we would unmute all these, and we would mute this one and mute this one, and so on. And we go through this entire track until we have only the best parts that are comped. Now, if you have multiple layers of tracks, you're planning on panning, left and right and all that stuff, then you'd want to go through and comp those as well. I just have one performance here in this track, so that is vocal comping. Then we have vocal cleaning, so you want to get rid of all the noise and stuff. For example, if we go over to this track, do we hear any noise in this kind of big empty section here? So you can kind of hear that. So one thing you're hearing is headphone bleed, because headphones have bleed, and I'm using open backed headphones, which means they have more bleed than normal, which is great for mixing, not so great for tracking. And you hear some mouth noise and stuff there, so not great. So one thing we can do the easiest way is just to grab this and just pull it over, and it's gone. The downside of doing that is now you can't really clean up anything in the rest of the vocal performance, where if we leave this here, so then we can edit this track in a tool called Isotope RX. And I have an old version of this, and this can be kind of expensive, so don't worry if you can't afford this. I'm going to share with you a much more affordable way in a second. But you can see, you can zoom in here. This is the ultimate best way to get rid of noise, because you can see all this cloudiness in here. That's the noise. So if we highlight this, and it's kind of hard for us to hear it now, but when you're putting, compression and saturation and limiting and stuff, that's going to bring up the noise. So we're going to do spectral denoise. And then we're going to learn, so we're selecting just the noise here. We're going to learn that noise profile. And then we can preview it. We can do output noise only, so we're only hearing the noise now. We're only hearing what's being taken out. So we want to make sure we don't hear any of the voice. We can put in this curve here to help kind of shape it. And we want this curve to generally be as straight as possible. Kind of just a good rule of thumb. So we're hearing a tiny bit of the vocal, so we're just going to bring the threshold down a tad and the reduction a tad. We'll smooth out the line. All right, so we'll go ahead and highlight all these, and we are going to now render, and we should see this cloudy. Yep, see that cloudiness gets reduced. And this is just great for finding any other kind of like problems in here. But I heard like that. But there's like a little like click here. So I can just like highlight that, and then I can just use Shift S, and then that silences that. And then we got all these breaths in here too, so we could use something too like breath control, and we can preview. But I heard song. So now we're hearing just what's being taken out. And we can control how strong that is. Maybe we want it to be super strong. And so then we can, bam, render that, and all the breaths get kind of taken out. And I kind of missed this one here. But I heard. So that's where we can come in here. Shift S. Right, there's some stuff in here. Boom. So it's a really easy way to clean up your audio. And then when you're done, we just do File, overwrite original file. And then we can close down this, and now the file's updated. And so that's a really easy way to clean up your audio. Another tool, if you can't afford RX, is we could just grab a really great one, is Waves Clarity VX. There's just the regular one here, which is really awesome. So we can still hear some sounds in there. And now it's gone. She saw it breaking in my eyes, the shimmer of truth behind the lies. So that's how you can easily go about and clean up your audio. By the way, links to these plugins are in the description below. Now next we're going to want to align vocals. So if we have a bunch of vocal stacks, we want to make sure they're all lined up correctly. So for example, if we have like this section here, and we got these different layers. Now it all ignites, every thread and every spark, a brand new start, map written on my heart. So we want to look at these waveforms and make sure they're all kind of lined up, right? Like this one's a little bit early. Actually, kind of this whole track is kind of early. So we might want to like pull this over and just nudge that back a bit. So we want to make sure that the kind of the transients of these waveforms, initial attack of the waveforms is they're kind of lined up close. Now it all ignites, every thread and every spark, a brand new start, map written on my. Now it all ignites, every thread and every spark, a brand new start, map written on my. So that sounds pretty good. There's also a great tool by Waves called Sync VX, which will align all your vocals for you. And here's what that sounds like. So this is what it looks like right here. And so what it does is it automatically aligns all your vocals, which is absolutely incredible because this is something that would take me hours and hours to. If you have a huge stack of vocal takes and you have to manually align all of these, that can take forever, but this does it automatically. And so I'm gonna show you real quick how to use it and what it sounds like. So first, let's bypass this and hear how it sounds. So I got these 3 vocal tracks here. Who needs the guidance of the stars when you have the right morning star? So not awful. But you can definitely hear at the beginning and the end of phrases, it's getting a little sloppy, like those S sounds, and this just doesn't sound good, doesn't sound professional, and you have to align those, and you just have to align those manually. Not anymore. So let's unbypass this, and you can see how things align on their own there, and let's hear it. Who needs the guidance of the stars when you So there you go. Now they're perfectly aligned. Amazing. And it took 1 click, basically. I just had to add this plugin at the beginning of the plugin chain for each of these tracks, and that was it. All right, so then the last thing we need to do is just kind of tune our vocals. In my previous video, I showed you how you can use a way to like level your vocals while you're recording them. So the last thing we want to do is just tune these. And one thing you can do is manually tune them, or you can use Autotune. So we got the Autotune in here by Waves. You can also use the default pitch corrector tool that comes in your DAW. I have a full video on how to use the Logic pitch correction tool. I'll have that linked below. Or we can manually tune these if we wanted to. So you double click on them. We would turn on the flex pitch tool, and then we turn to pitch, and then we want to make sure we're kind of on with our different pitches. So if we zoom out here, we can kind of see, for example, this section right here, this is supposed to be in the key of C, so we see we're a little bit flat here. So if we pull that up,
plastic smile.
So, oops. So this is probably supposed to be like a C.
Plastic smile.
And we see if there's a big peak right here, it usually means it's probably supposed to be another note. So we'll see if we cut that right there where it peaks up.
Plastic smile. Plastic smile. Rule bound home. But in my
That's much better.
plastic smile. Rule bound home. But in my
And if you want it to sound really robotic, we can grab these and we can pull down the vibrato. That will help keep things more straying from going out of tune.
plastic smile. Rule bound home.
But the downside is you can create that really robotic effect if we really crush this.
Plastic smile. Rule bound home.
So we'll put that maybe up at 70, 80.
Plastic smile. Rule bound home. But in
All right, then we just can keep going all the way through. And that's supposed to be up there.
plastic smile. Rule bound home. But in my bones I felt alone. She called.
All right, so that's a little.
Bones I felt alone. She called.
So that's supposed to be F.
Bones I felt alone. She called it love. Bones I felt alone. She called it love. But I was.
So you just kind of go through here, and we're just kind of nudging things around.
Bones I felt alone. She called it love.
It's probably supposed to be a C.
She called it love. But I was.
That's probably supposed to be an E.
She called it love, but I was chained, wrapped in.
So you can see this can be very time consuming. So that's where kind of using the Autotune can kind of help. But usually for your lead vocal, you want that to be really spot on. So it can be best to do this manual tuning method. So these squiggly lines are what the actual pitch is. So that's kind of what you want to look at. And these squares or rectangles are just kind of an approximation. So it's okay if the rectangle isn't quite on the note. You can see the notes in here. But you kind of want that squiggly line to be more or less in there. So you can see if it goes up and down, that's where you're getting kind of like vibrato.
Masked in shame, she spoke.
I definitely want this to be... Oops, don't want to change the length.
But I was chained, wrapped in silence, masked in shame. She spoke in spells I learned too late.
Not bad. So that's then how you can go about tuning your vocals. So once we do that with all of our vocals and they're all good and cleaned up and ready to go, then we can go about mixing them. By the way, this lesson in my entire Saddest Studio Ever series is brought to you by my course, Radio Ready Record. This is my complete end-to-end system for setting up your home studio using budget equipment, how to go about writing a song, producing a song, mixing it, mastering it, and releasing it to the world, all within your home studio, even if you don't have acoustic treatment, or you don't even know how to play an instrument or much music theory. So if you want to learn more about this course, just go to orpheusaudioacademy.com/RRR. So now in the next video in this series, I'm going to break down how to actually start mixing your track. I'm going to walk through the mix prep section. So how to prep your track for mixing, because you can see we got our instrument tracks up here. We got all these vocal tracks. So how do we go about prepping our track so that mixing becomes really simple and easy? Well, I'll show you that in the next video. So be sure to click the box on the screen right now, which will take you to that video, and I'll see you over there.